have somebody in the wing here that we just absolutely like. We're kind of like Bruno Duarte fan club.
Yes.
And so, you know, we've had the pleasure to work with Bruno last year and with the virtual program. And then to have him here live is really exciting. Get to be able to see him actually right here on stage and actually showing exactly how he does all this. We're really thrilled. So he's from Toronto, Fresh Flower Creations, wonderful shop. Wonderful business that caters to a lot of great corporate accounts, and he's just a wonderful designer to bring on stage. We want to also introduce Justin Everett, his partner and his wonderful helper, assistant. So anyway, let's just bring him on.
Let's bring them on.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Good morning. It's so beautiful to look out and see so much color. You all look amazing. It's been such a treat to be back in Hawaii and actually being in such beautiful nature and seeing how a lot of these materials that I love to work with in its actual natural habitat. It's been a dream. So I'm going to start with my first design, which is one of the materials that I fell in love with when I first discovered it. It's this material, which is Monstera root. This is what a bunch looks like when you purchase it from Greenpoint Nurseries. So you get about, let's say, 6 to 7 stems. The thing I love about the Monstera roots is the fact that you get a vine this long, right? So to build structures, you build them a lot quicker with because you can just continue instead of stopping and restarting again. So you can continue, to kind of with your structure and with the wiring. How I build most of my structures pretty much is I use this type of wire as my base. And with all most of my structures that I'm doing for my presentation, I created all my containers, and the base is basically this eucalyptus. Because I like it because it's heavy, so it gives you a very sturdy base. So for this one, as you can see, I only have this much showing. So the wires, I used this. I get the wires. This is how long the wires are that I get from my orchid supplier. Originally, how I fell into found this as my mechanic is I had buckets because I never threw the wires out from my orchids, and I just kept them. Sometimes I used it to anchor things. And then last time I came to Hawaii, Hitomi showed me the technique to put it in the drill and with the paper-covered wire. So then it gives you, the reason why I love that is because once you're doing wiring, there's so many grooves on the wire now. So if you wire at this point, it's not going to move because you have that groove. So it becomes a very sturdy structure. You do spend a lot of time on building your structures, but you get to reuse it so many times. That's the beauty of spending the time, but then you get to reuse it and change how you use it. The beauty about using the wires as well is the fact that all of a sudden you want to change it, you can actually squish it down and kind of create a new structure because the wires are pliable. Once you squish it, you're not going to be able to bring it back to where it was. So you have to choose when you want to do that. So for this structure, one thing that I kind of tried something different. I usually do only one root at a time. For this one, I use 2 roots at a time. Because if you use, and I think the maximum you could do is 2, because if you use 3, then it's going to start bundling up, and you're not going to get the same sort of structure finesse on your finished product. So when you look at my structures, you will see a lines of wire. So this is basically, what I did here is I basically drilled into the side of the eucalyptus, and I kind of shoved the wire in, and then I bent it all the way around. And then I did 6 wires for this structure. So they kind of crisscrossed at the top, and then I started at the bottom, and I started working my way up with the wires. And the way I wire the way I do the wiring, and I tend to do this for most of this, I basically start with taking your 22 gauge wire. I use the corsage tape because the reason why I like using that, using that as my base is because it makes the wire really tacky, so then it doesn't slide. So it makes it very, keeping it even more sturdy. So it's like, it's one of these things that you can have for years after you've created it. And so basically I just kind of do one twist, I'll just do this, just to kind of show you. And then you just kind of do one twist, and then you kind of go around, and then once you come back around, you twist on the inside. So now I'm going to twist on the inside, go back around. So when you come back around, now you're going to twist on the outside. So you're using the same wire, and all your binding points on this sort of structure are all on the outside of this wire. So now I'm going to go on the outside. And then you come back around, and now you're going to twist on the inside. So you just alternate, as you can see, and then the outside is basically you have that finished attachment points. So that's how this was created, and I did it with 2 roots at a time. And then I basically inserted water picks, and because the water picks have a bit of a lip, it literally just rests inside the structure without falling in. And if it doesn't have that, you would have to put a wire just to secure it to your structure, so otherwise it would fall in. I'm not exactly sure what this, I know this is in the string of hearts family, because I have some at home, and I noticed that it was flowering, and I have the exact same thing, so I'm like, same family, and so it's very durable. So I kind of just wanted something organic to go over the structure. Just gonna take this out of the way. And I'm just going to use these mini anthurium. And as I'm designing, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
How long did it take you to make the sphere?
It's an hour and a half. But don't forget, if you just need to, the more practice you have, the faster you become at it. So don't be afraid to try it. You know, the first couple of times it's going to take you a while, but like I said earlier, it's the fact that you will have this structure for a good while, right? You can, especially if you do corporate work, even if it's one of those things that you can rent out for your events, for weddings, right? And then reuse again, so basically it's just a rental piece to the couple, to the client. And this could be a design that could sit either at a reception table. If you have like a bride and groom that want something very sculptural on the table, this could look cool as a centerpiece as well. And then you can. And one of the things is, if you have enough lead time, you can do it a lot ahead of time. Just so you can see what I'm looking at. So I just wanted that crescent kind of coming down, to kind of that kind of movement.
Bruno?
Yes.
When you're making your structure with the, and you have to add another root, are you binding them together when it's a new root?
Great question. Let me find it on the structure so I can show you sort of how. So this is a perfect example here. So these are the 2 roots joining up together. So you kind of just overlap them a little bit and then twist, because once it's completed, you lose it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So is it a separate piece of a little bind wire that you're
Yeah.
up here?
So as you can see, there's this, and then you add a little piece just to attach it together. Great question.
So do you just play around when you're creating these structures, or did you have a vision in mind?
I usually start with the overall shape that I want to create. So that's my sort of vision. And a lot of the times you start with the shape, and sometimes it ends up totally being something totally different, because it takes a long time to do these things. And all of a sudden you kind of building it, and then you see something different. And it's like, oh, this is even better. So then you go that route. And then you kind of surprise yourself creating it, which is amazing. That,
Put a base, insert a base inside the center.
Not this one, but I have done that before, where this I want it to become as a sculpture with embellishment of flowers. If you do that with the vase, it becomes a container. So it's just a different type of kind of how you create your structure.
How would you keep the flowers hydrated in case of heat? And would you also do this design with more temperate flowers?
You can, absolutely, because you have a water source with the water picks, right? So you can use it, water tubes, sorry.
No worries.
Bruno, I have another question.
Yeah.
So when you're choosing materials, so obviously this is, quite monobotanical, right? With the one kind. Do you have kind of a rule of thumb for yourself, like up to 2 different types, or?
I actually do, because I find that you spend so much time on creating the structures and creating these beautiful shapes and organics, and I find if you use too many things, you lose the structure, and it's like you spent all this time and you want to show it off your kind of your craftsmanship, really. So, and keep it so then it just kind of really complements. And I love the blush pink with the brown of the root.
How many water tubes do you have in there?
One, two, three, four, five, six, about 13. So, and I had one lady stepper, so I was just like, it will make it onto this. And lady steppers are one of my favorite flowers. I come from a small island, Madeira Island, and that is sort of their flower. Then for this, I actually did used the same, the Monstera root. So what I did here is basically I have the brown wire. I have 3 wires. So I have 1 wire here, 1 wire here, and 1 wire here, and then 1 circle wire in the center. Can you all see it? So and that's the only wire, like the circle that holds the 3 wires together, and then that creates your handle. And so I just started in the center and worked my way down. So this bouquet, I kind of designed with my head designer in mind, my manager. She's actually getting married tomorrow. And she's like, when you're store manager, she's like literally your right hand. And she's amazing, so I'm so happy that she's getting married. Unfortunately, I can't be there, but I was able to order these before I left. So she's gonna be carrying these tomorrow. So I'm like, I have to make this for her. So, some water. So the beauty about so I created this sort of almost like a beehive. And so what I did with when inserting the oncidium is I actually put them in and then I pushed under to make them curve down. So because you're using the structure to kind of hold you're pushing up, and it forces the stem to go down, so it gives you that movement. And then I just love the texture of the pincushions. So it's a very simple bouquet, and it's one of those things that you can if the bride doesn't take it, you can take the flowers back and reuse the base. And another thing that I get a lot is when they make the bouquets, they're like, what are we going to do with it after the ceremony and after that? Well, the beauty about this structure is you just cover a vase, and it becomes a centerpiece on the table. So it kind of fills in, and it just sits, and you have this beautiful structure. continuing with the Monstera, we basically, like I did with the first, with the ball, we kind of did a little higher up on the wood stump, and we did 1, 2. There's 8 wires coming up, so kind of create, and I think we have 1 circle to kind of keep the actual base. With most of my structures, I literally start with creating. Once you create your base with the wires, you just literally have to cover it. So then you kind of have your shape of what the container is going to look like. And so we started with the Monstera roots. We literally, Justin, the lovely assistant, he literally flipped it upside down, put it on top of the stump, and then he elevated it so that he can start building from underneath, coming up. And then I did a tatami of the passion vine technique, big enough so that it fills in the top. And so when I put it in, it fell in. So because you have a wood stump, you can drill into it. So I put some of the green wire, I put 3 wires into the middle, straight up, and then just bent it. So now you have a support for your passion vine. And then I inserted the test tubes. And the way that I do my test tubes for most of my structures is I kind of do the waxed wire, and I just leave like one long string and kind of insert it into the structure. And then I kind of wind it around the first couple of times really tight. So there's no twist. You're just kind of going around, and then it holds nicely. So I'm just going to add some water. I actually thought I had these filled. So I'm glad I brought this on stage.
Do you have any idea how many bunches of Monstera that took?
This, I believe, was 4 bunches, and 3 bunches of passion vine. So I love bromeliads because you can just use them without water, and they're such a great, and there's so many different colors. I'm sure you all went to on the tour yesterday to the bromelia grower. Yeah. So now I'm just going to, I just put a wire in here so that I can give extra support so when you transport it so it doesn't fall out. And the beauty of this kind of bowl structure is you can do this, I'm kind of low, but then you can also just take this off and put a lomi or something or a big, like a low dish, and then you can fill it with, make it a big grand design. So you have the option because you already have beautiful bowl. So there's a lot of, you're reusing many times. It all depends on what the client and what inspiration hits. I have a passion of structures. I'm now known for being the structure designer. The reason why I love structures so much is the fact that when I first opened up my shop, I would create window displays. But if I created window displays with just flowers and I didn't take anything away from it, it was a bit of a waste of money. So then my passion was, okay, I need to create something that I can reuse. So that's sort of how my passion for structures began. And then it's kind of just been developing and experimenting along the way. And I just love these anthurium because it has a bit of that green and it picks up on a bit of the pink. Any questions?
wide of a base, even though you have the broadness?
Yes, because of the weight of the eucalyptus stump. And it's a very heavy wood, which is, I was very happy, because I emailed Allison, she's the procurement, and I just said, I need stumps, and I need it to be like 7 inches tall, and just whatever diameter you can get. And when I got here, the first thing I did was pick it up. I'm like, yep, this will work. Because it was about, for me, it was about the weight. Because it's like if you pick something that doesn't have a very, and then you go too wide, you will have it will fall over. And especially here, if you're doing stuff outside, it's very windy.
Have you ever thought about utilizing the Monstera roots to make like baskets for flower girls?
That's a great idea. Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely do that, for sure. That's a great alternative to a basket, and it's a little bit more unique and organic. Also, the passion vine that we've gotten recently, we never had, we first saw it, I've never seen it with so many flowers. It usually doesn't come with as many, so it was kind of nice to have that because it gives you an extra element of floral on your structure. And I also wanted to create a design where I can really go crazy with anthuriums, because it's not very often you get this opportunity.
I was going to ask if you have a standing order of N30.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. Well, and especially also in Toronto, we don't have, unfortunately, we don't have as great of a selection. So it's amazing to order from Hawaii, and also the different sizes. That's the big difference, especially for corporate work. And one of the beauties about the anthuriums is the fact that you can resell it once or twice, because it's such a long-lasting flower, and it comes back, and it's like, okay, I can use it, So it really is that you get a lot of bang for your buck. And voila. There you go. So we went into the workroom, and there was this beautiful treasure in the room, which is a palm trunk. So this was a palm, and it's just like, first of all, I thought it was bamboo, and then I'm like, oh, bamboo it doesn't have all these fibers in the center, so it can't be bamboo. So then and then I asked him, and it's a palm. So it's such a unique, and it's also really heavy, which is amazing. So then I was like, what am I going to do with this? So I'm like, we have all this passion vine. I'm going to create basically a basket. And with this wiring technique, because I wanted to cover the wire, I went in and out with the vine. So I didn't come up just on one side. I kind of, every time if I wired the passion vine on the inside, the next one's going to be on the outside. So that the wire disappears organically. And then we found these gorgeous Asclepia from here. Never seen anything like it. And basically I brought these glass test tubes from home. I originally bought them from Fusion Magazine. So you can get different sizes, and I love them, because especially for a lot of my designs, when I just use like a small orchid bloom, The smaller ones will last. It has enough water for them for a week because they don't drink a lot of water. So then when you put a big bloom on top, it disappears. So it looks like it's floating. Okay. I knew that was going to happen. I was contemplating, like, should I cut them off? Should I not cut them off? Maybe I shouldn't do it on stage.
It's hard to go, oh,
Yeah, exactly. Don't do it. Like, don't do this. And then we went to Greenpoint Nurseries and actually went and saw their orchid farm. And they had these orange Oncidium, which are absolutely spectacular. And I'm actually going to, the beauty about these is the fact that there's so many breaks. I just wanted to showcase that a lot of times florists are like, oh, how much do you charge for that? Oh, it's too expensive. The amount of breaks on here, you can actually probably do this kind of bowl with 3 Oncidium. Yeah. And it was kind of amazing going through the greenhouse because there was, I think I have, so this is the original yellow, the orange that you get. It's a little bit paler. And then there was this hybrid of, and it just happens organically. So we kind of picked up all the bright ones because that's just like I wanted to show. But I wanted some of the pale, because this is usually the color that you'll get. But this is kind of spectacular because it has a bit more yellow into it. And in most of one of the flowers that I tend to use a lot of in my designs is orchids. It's just something about, they're so unique and so long-lasting, and there's so many different colors that it comes in. So that's one of the reasons I always kind of I've always gravitated towards orchids.
Bruno, you use a lot of orchids. Do you buy them as cut orchids, or do you buy plants?
A lot of the times it's cut, yeah. And we do, at the shop, we do orchid rotations for clients. And sometimes some months when the orchids we use come back, and so then it becomes a cut. So we get the opportunity to use them as cuts. And sometimes you can't get cuts, and you have to resort to, kind of problem solve, which we all know that it's very much part of this industry. And it's like, okay, where can I get it, and how can I make it work? So you kind of get plants, and you cut them down, and you kind of make the client happy.
Have you done that with more of a taller shape instead of wider with the same mechanics with the wire and the wrap?
Yes, at Symposium, I actually did like a low dish, and then same thing with the wires, just kind of went straight up, and then a couple of rings, and then I inserted yellow callus, kind of wrapping around.
So similar mechanics.
Then if you do this type of thing with calla lilies, are you just doing it without water source because they're fine?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really kind of experimenting with flowers. That's the beauty of, you know, like when with our window display, kind of constantly changing it and trying new things. It's sort of a trial as well for some flowers to see how they actually last. Because you have them in the window. If they don't work, you can just kind of replace them with something else. But then you get an idea, and then you're confident that you know it's going to be fine for a certain. Come on.
Put your oncidiums in the cooler, like after, process them.
That's a great question. I don't. I've always been told that orchids don't go in the fridge. But recently, whenever I go to my wholesalers, I'm always getting it from the fridge. So I started putting them in the fridge, and they last. Because I thought that like if you put them in the fridge, it's going to shock them, and then when you take them out, they're going to become transparent. But that's not the case. They just they actually do last longer by putting them in the fridge.
That's what we've been finding too.
Yeah. And I didn't know about that till recently, because it's like it's embedded in us in floristry school that it's like orchids do not go in the fridge. You will, so it's kind of nice to kind of finally have an orchid that's like, oh, we can go in the fridge. That means I have 2 weeks out of it instead of 1. So I'm kind of creating like a ring of fire. And I just like the fact that you have to peer in to this design, kind of, to appreciate the lady slippers.
Are there any other binding materials that you like to work with when you're creating these structures?
I'm always looking for things, or trying to, keeping an eye out for things that, the main thing when I'm looking for materials to build structures is how do they last? What happens to them once they start shrinking? Do they stay in the same shape, or do they go brown or they go black? Then it's something that's like, then you kind of have to figure out sort of, is it really worth it? Because then you're going to throw it out or you're not going to use it. So you want something that you can reuse and it will not change too much. And then you can also embellish it by adding other things to it. Ivy? I haven't tried ivy, but that would be because it does shrink, but it doesn't shrink too much. It still keeps its form. Yeah.
What do you use like in Canada? Because you're clearly using things from here, but what do you use over there regularly?
I literally order it from Greenpoint, because we don't have a lot of viney things that actually hold up.
So how long does the passion vine actually hold?
The passion vine will go brown after a week and a half to 2 weeks.
And does that mean it's getting chucked at that point, or
No,
it's still
exactly, because it still has an organic. It becomes like a brown, right? So then it's just a different look. Exactly. And with these little test tubes, if you were doing it for an event, obviously they have enough water. If you were doing it for a corporate, I wouldn't suggest it because they will drink. They won't, by the time you come back, the orchids will be bone dry. So it's kind of selecting sort of how long it's going to be there and what purpose you're using them with.
When you're doing the corporate work, are there any larger containers? Like, or, like, do you have anything a little bit bigger, like maybe a smaller bud base size that might hold those?
I would probably use a bigger test tube. Yeah.
When did you open your
Opened my shop 16 years ago. Yeah, we just celebrated our 16th year on September 8th. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. It's been quite the journey. And
Did you always start in corporate, or you
slowly shifted, yeah. I started with like event work and kind of everyday flowers and kind of just kind of building your name and kind of word of mouth, and then eventually kind of went into the corporate, and then kind of got because clients would go and see other corporate, and then they would like, who does your flowers, and then you get that word of mouth, and then it kind of slowly builds up again. And there we are. Okay. So this, created with and I literally just did wires straight up, and then I did a ring. I did 4 rings, one here, one here, one here, and one at the top. And Justin started, because we've done this, and this is what the material that we used, throw this here, is basically the banyan roots. And this is what a bunch of banyan, when you get it from Greenpoint. So it's people that are watching kind of like, how much do you get for a bunch? Because I get that question often. So I was like, let me bring one on stage. So that's, and for this structure, 7 bunches. Yeah. So what Justin realized to make it cleaner as he was building, and which is one of those things that when you're building structure, it's like, how do I make it cleaner? How do I make it go faster? You kind of, so what he did is basically wired it, and then he started twisting. So it became more like a rope. So it takes a little bit more time, but then you get this really clean look. And also banyan is such a durable material that it doesn't change, right? So it doesn't, so it really literally will stay like this for years.
So your wire to secure it to the eucalyptus stump is actually drilled.
We drill.
With drilled in.
Exactly. So you kind of go all the way with the drill bit and then just push it as far as I can. I've done it before where I've actually added some glue, but I find that once you do the binding points and then you're doing the binding of the structures, it's a waste of time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You kind of go around and then you basically do one and then cut all the wires the same length so that your rings will all be the same. Because I've done it before where it gets smaller and then your structure goes, oh, why is it going smaller? Because your rings are smaller. So when building structures, like once you have the right foundation, then it stays exactly the same. So with this, we got these amazing bromeliads. So I'm just going to. The beauty about bromeliads is the fact that they don't need a water source because they will last really well. And so, as I'm trying to stick wiring, I'm just going to give you a tip, is if you know how you're going to use it, I would use less wires going up. So then you have a bigger gap, so then you can actually easily intertwine and get in there to do wires or attach.
gauge wire are you using? Is it like a 18 or 20?
For the uprights, it is, I think it's like a 6 gauge. I'm going to pass it around so you guys can feel sort of what's the...
Oh, 6 gauge, you mean the orchid wire?
Yeah,
Yeah, for staking.
yeah,
Okay, it's like for cymbidium.
exactly. Yeah, so that's exactly that wire.
But then when you
But
doing the inside, outside, it's
This one?
outside. Yeah.
22 gauge, yeah.
Talking about corporate work, you're talking mainly lobbies and like business.
Exactly, yeah. And basically like restaurants as well. Usually restaurants, it's one of those we do like on a Thursday. And then lobbies and stuff, we kind of do it for Mondays because that's, kind of want to have it fresh for the week. So that's, I just love the variation of the pink with the brown as the backing. Like it just becomes such a great, to kind of show off the whatever material you use on top.
How long did it take to construct the?
This one took a long time. What did you say, 5 hours? Yeah. And of course, it was the last one. Poor Justin's like, is it over yet? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Allison, what is this plant? Philodendron. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Because I'm like, I love the variegation on, yeah. And that's one of the things when you're kind of doing your structures, sometimes all you need is just a very unique product because you don't need a lot of it. You just need some unique product to make, kind of just, then you're really showcasing the material.
What type of training do you have, Bruno?
I went to Humber College, so I have a college degree in floristry. It was like a 2-year course condensed into a year and a half. And shortly after I finished the course, they no longer offered it, so we only have it at Seneca College. But it was fantastic to get schooling because you need to learn the rules before you start breaking them. And I just want to show you just this variety anthurium with the bromeliad. It's just like, hello. Good question. Allison, what's the variety called? I call it beautiful. Shibori? I just love the speckle on it. Because then you can pull in so many different colors into your design.
So quick question for you on proportion. Are you naturally getting Fibonacci in there, or are you pre-calculating that?
Good question. Because This is something that I struggle with because a lot of times I design because it feels right. So it's not one of those I'm like, oh, I need to, because this is A858. It's because I'm like, this when I'm designing, it's just like, this is exactly what I feel. It's one of those instinct things. And sometimes it's hard to teach. It's just like, this is what it feels right. So it's like, how did you do it? I'm like, well, it's because I'm like, well, when I was putting it, this is exactly where I thought it should go.
Bruno, is everything you're putting in a water source right now, or
Yeah.
everything's water source?
Just the bromeliads are no water source. Everything else is in these. So I just literally inserted it into the side. I kind of wedged it in on an angle, straight down. Yeah, exactly. And it holds water.
How long would that bromeliad last without water?
I was told that it dries beautifully. Yeah, yeah. So when I heard that, I'm like, done. I know exactly how I'm going to use it. And it's nice to have, being able to know, from the grower or the supplier, knowing that that actually does. Now you have many ways of using it. And usually when I'm designing, I start with the structure. And once the structure is done, then I kind of select my plant material. I have an idea of sort of what I want, and then once I have the overall shape, I kind of pick one of the elements that's going to be the main. Like it was the bromeliad that kind of made me pick these anthurium because I wanted to pull from the colors in the bromeliad. All right, you ready? And they just keep getting heavier and heavier. Yeah. This was a material that I was just like found on this trip.
Too tall.
And we're going to put her on the floor.
Or in this one.
So we went to Greenpoint Nurseries. We pull up to Greenpoint Nurseries, and there's these 3 dead trees, and the bark is literally peeling off the trees. I'm like, OMG. I'm like, will you ship that to me? Because I'm always constantly looking for new material to build stuff, something organic. So my inspiration for this one was literally the bark. And basically, what's in there is my wire grid. And so what I've done is created the wire grid exactly like I did with that column, and with the rings, and making sure it's stable enough. And what I've done is just literally drill 2 drill points through the wood, and then make sure, like here, you can see a wire here. Make sure you attach it to the wire frame. And the more you add to create your structure, then it becomes very stable and sound. So you're recreating a tree. And then I just basically had a front and a back. And so I kind of added test tubes to have a water source for the vine to give you that. And I needed something organic to kind of add to it. And once again, I'm going to
Bruno, do you also make fairy houses on the side?
there. There's a missed opportunity there.
So that must be a wider test tube then.
It's basically that wide, and it's a bigger glass test tube. Give me a.
Do you find transporting with glass tubes is difficult?
Yeah, I broke like 7 or 8. Just so you lose a few. And recently, I've kind of seen. I kind of love the one thing I love about Instagram is kind of seeing what kind of designers are using, and I've been seeing a lot of bromeliads being used in designs. So then we knew you guys had a great bromeliad supplier, so I'm like, I definitely want to coming down. I wanted to play with it and kind of get inspired, because when I come and do demonstrations, I also want to take away something that I haven't used, or it's like let's see how I would use it, and then kind of incorporate it into my work.
Do you have any tips on transporting these? Would you make them on site?
We made all these yesterday.
But I mean, if you were to be installing this into a lobby, would you pre-make everything, or would you flower it on site?
Most of the time, I always take it already flowered, just because a lot of, especially the corporate, like hotel lobbies and stuff, they don't want you to be working. They want you to literally just come in, take away the old one, put it down, do a little bit of tweaking, and off you go. Oh, that is the biggest challenge. There is no tips. It's like you just make sure that it's stable, and especially it's like, roads in Toronto are super bumpy. Yeah, here it's like hilly, so you have to literally. I always do a shake test. Yeah, especially if it's in a milk crate and it's wobbling, and you're going over bumps, it's going to wobble even more, and eventually, and then it's like, I've had a couple of designs, because when we had to go up, like for a hotel, we had to go up a really steep hill, a little face planted, and it's like, okay, so now you have kind of like, okay, so you kind of make it work, and then it's like the next time it's like you do bungees, you kind of resecure, so it only needs to happen once or twice, and it's like after that, I'm like, you just resecure it, even if it doesn't need it, you just do it just in case, because you just never know.
So you don't have the thing in the car with the rods?
I don't. I've seen those, but yeah. But I'd be interested to see if they actually do work, because obviously if somebody has actually thought about something that for the industry.
Best investment ever. I don't know what it's called, but I have it and I love it. It's the best investment ever, because it's a grid system. Yeah, the peg system. Yeah. Out of Florida, that's right. That's what, it is worth it.
Very good friends of AIFB.
So
Very
good.
good.
Okay. Oh, really?
Yes.
It's really versatile.
When I was at the symposium, Bart had several books, and I kind of flipped through, and he's like, I was flipping through. He's like, oh, I haven't done that one. I haven't done that one. But he has a library of, because sometimes it's like when you're going to do a demo or something, you're like, what am I going to teach? What am I going to show? Or what haven't I done before? So that's, he gave me some good advice about that. Like sketching is definitely a good thing to have.
Well, you're always in your shop, your studio, so, and active constantly. So you're probably able to just manifest it in person before you could sketch it, right?
And I usually kind of my corporate, like my hotel is sort of my outlet. So that's like, oh, I had that idea, let's try it, because they give you sort of a carte blanche to kind of try things, and then it's like, okay, then it works. Yeah, and how to change the floral elements in it.
So from a direct to consumer,
Yeah.
of course, the rentals are all good.
Yeah.
But the amount of labor that goes in
Yeah.
to making these, it's not friendly for a retail base. Do you have any suggestions or downscales that you have done in the past for maybe a retail?
Yeah, it's what I have come up with is coming up with structures that you can do ahead of time, that don't take too long. Like we do like reed structures on our wires, so you kind of it's a straight branch, and you just do mats of it, have them laying down, and then a client comes in and they want something unique. You literally wrap it around the vase, on the outside of a vase. It literally takes 15 minutes to create, and then you have this really unique container. But it's coming up with those kind of ideas, or even having like discs, dogwood discs. You know what I mean? Once you get into that tatami technique and creating those mats or those things that can literally pile up, they're not taking up too much room, and you literally have them sitting there. And it's one of those, it's like if you're using it for a corporate, you can use 7 of them, they're coming back. If you're using it for an order, you use 1 and you sell it. So yeah, having that sort of options of. And voila. Now, is it going to stay is the question. How much is going to fall? Yeah.
Can I carry it? I don't know.
No, it's too heavy. It's very heavy, yeah. I'm going to put this there. Yep. I'm using the table as my facing forward, please. Okay. Okay. So with this, I basically turned the log on its side. We scraped the bottom, and now that we've moved it a couple of times, it's kind of not. It has lost its groove. So one thing I would recommend, if you're going to use this sort of idea, put a couple of legs, those. You can get those little plastic that you can just nail. So then it becomes a stable. So you don't have the issue. I'm like, oh my God, it's going to roll over. So for this structure, I literally put 2 of these wires. I'm going to do this. Hold on. So I'm going to put this here. Whew. So basically, drilled onto the side, straight down, bent the wires, and then created a circle. And from there, I attached wires going across to give it the stability and keep them from touching each other. And then kind of bent them down to create sort of an oval. And then wrapped the wires to cover the mechanics with banyan root. So then after that, I started drilling and attaching the bark horizontally. And then we have this beautiful palm flower in white. We had this huge piece in the workroom, and I'm like, I just grabbed it because I'm like, I'm not sure how I'm going to use it, but it's going to. I just need to have it. And then once I created this structure, and I saw so much white in the bark, I'm like, this is going to be the perfect element to attach. And I literally just kind of inserted it in here because it doesn't need a water source. So, and then I've inserted a couple of glass test tubes. And this is sort of these are the glass test tubes that I used in that structure as well. So it's this size. Okay.
And are you going to be giving autographs out after?
You guys are sweet. No hugs, as you can see. I'm sweating up a storm up here. Greenpoint is we went to the farm and we actually saw this is one of those elements that's been missing since COVID in floristry. We seem to get these Macaras, or this is an Aranda variety orchid to use. So I'm happy that they're starting the production of these because that's one of those elements that we always constantly have in the shop. And I find that the ones that we're getting from Thailand are not, they don't last. They kind of they wilt too easily. So you kind of feels like you're constantly dunking them into water and then trying to use them, and then it's like you're literally only using the tips. So. When I first saw these, I actually was thinking of doing like a curtain, like doing a curtain of Monstera roots and then pinning all the orchids onto it because it's fleshy. But then I was just like, I don't know how that's going to be transportable and putting it on stage. But that was the original idea, and then it's kind of developed into this. I'm putting most of the pincushions in Protea, the pincushion Protea into water source. But as I'm designing, I'm actually going to now insert them into the structure without any water source, because if you're using it for a one-day event, the pincushions will be totally fine. And the one thing about Hawaii is you guys have a lot of humidity in the air, so you have the flexibility of using a lot of flowers without any water source. You can, which is a dream because you can design a lot faster. Because a lot of times the amount of time that it takes to put on all the water picks and everything, it takes such a long time. And have the flexibility of just inserting it on site and in place where you want it, it's kind of pretty amazing. Oh, thank you. I'm hoping that Greenpoint Nurseries is going to be able to ship some of these palm flowers to Canada going forward, because it's such a great textural material. It's such a great base to kind of create your structures and embellish with flowers.
And naturally bleached.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder, do you guys know with time does it go brown? Does it stay white? The palm flower? Because that's one of the things that, kind of discovering it, because that's the kind of questions that pop into my head. Well, how does it do after a while? Thank you so much for this amazing experience. Thank you. It's been such a pleasure to be here in Hawaii with you all and sharing my passion for what I do.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Tessie, so we were just busy chatting away here because everybody's saying, is that a fructescence or is that an inflorescence? What kind of palm is it?
Yeah.
So the word is,
Oh, it's before. I'm looking at Neil.
Tessie?
When it's newly open. That's what he said.
so this just when it comes out of that.
Just for the first pops.
Right, so it's even before blooming.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this
Yeah.
is good to know,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. It's all these things because it's such a new product. So it's like, and the color. It's like,
It's just amazing.
for wedding work would be so spectacular because you don't get a lot of white vine. Right.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it's stunning.
Yeah.
And it's not bleached.
Yeah.
It's not.
That's right, it's so good.
It's not bleached.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So thank you so much because these are just absolutely inspirational material designs. And I believe, is it okay, Eric, to mention that? Because we feel that they're so absolutely gorgeous that some of you would probably love to have them in your collection to be able to use at the hotels and, some of you that do corporate work and that. So I believe it's going to go up for silent auction.
Amazing. Yeah.
That would be fabulous, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love for you guys to take it and enjoy and reuse it and that'd be amazing.
And then you just
Yeah.
add to the collection because now you know how to make it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So thank you again, Bruno.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful,
Thank you.
wonderful work.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
all. Pleasure.
Thank you.